A man carries his sins like saddlebags, tied tight, even when the horse is dead. Mine clinked with silver and blood, and the echoes of names I never meant to remember. One name stayed, though. One name carved itself into the hollow behind my ribs, quiet and permanent like a scar you don't talk about. I rode back into Dry Creek at dusk, the sun bleeding low across the buttes, casting long shadows that clung to me like guilt. I hadn't been seen in years, but towns like this, they don't forget, and they sure as hell don't forgive. The moment my boots hit Date, shutters twitched. The saloon door creaked on instinct, swinging shut just slow enough for me to see the cluster of regulars go stiff. Even the dust felt like it recoiled from my step. Tobias Knox met me at the edge of the square, hand resting casual on his belt, near enough to his iron to remind me he still wore the badge. He was older, leaner, the war lines around his eyes deeper. But his voice held the same quiet steel when he said, "You got stones, coming back here, Jesse." "I got nothing left but that," I said, brushing the grit from my coat. "Why now?" "I ain't here to stay." He gave a dry snort. "Ain't here to stay. Like that ever stopped trouble from finding you?" I didn't answer. He didn't need me to. He studied my face like it might confess something I hadn't said aloud, then jerked his chin toward the outskirts. "You can sleep in the old parson's barn. But, Jesse, stay away from the tavern, and stay out of sight. Folks here got long memories and short patience." I nodded and walked on, the thud of my boots echoing behind me like a heartbeat trying to outrun its past. The barn creaked with age and wind, but it was dry and wide enough for a man and his regrets. I settled near a cracked lantern and unearthed a half-rotted crate to sit on. The silence was thick, too thick, and I knew that kind of quiet didn't last. Not in Dry Creek. Not for me. A small journal lay forgotten near the store wall, dust-covered but intact. Inside, looping script ran like prayer across brittle pages. A preacher's musings, half sermons and half confessions. The man had written about grace, even in the midst of loss. His words struck somewhere beneath my ribs, in that aching space I thought long dead. He wrote, "A man may ride toward redemption, but he will never outrun his shadow." Outside, the wind shifted. Coyotes yipped in the distance, but something else was out there, a rustle, soft but deliberate. I stood, hand brushing the grip of my pistol, but didn't draw. The air held something unnatural in its stillness. Then I saw her. At first, just a shape, curled in the dirt beyond the barn fence, tangled in the scrub like windblown cloth. I stepped closer. A woman, her dress torn and face streaked with dust and dried blood. She was breathing, barely, but her eyes were open, sharp even through exhaustion. I knelt beside her. "You hurt." Her gaze cut through me, fierce despite her condition. "Don't touch me." I didn't. Instead, I crouched, keeping my hands visible, watching the rise and fall of her breath. Her skin glowed copper under the moonlight, her cheekbone high and proud even in pain. Her wrist bore angry red welts, bound, recently. Her lips were cracked, but the curve of her jaw trembled with resolve, not fear. "I'm not here to harm you," I said, voice low. "But I'm not leaving you out here to die either." She didn't respond, but her body sagged forward. Her strength was spent. Carefully, slowly, I slid my arms beneath her. She stiffened, but didn't resist. She weighed little, just bones and willpower. Carrying her felt like carrying judgment. Back in the barn, I laid her on my coat, stoked a meager fire from leftover wood. I offered her water. She took it, guarded but desperate. Her eyes never left mine. I didn't ask questions. Not yet. Instead, I wrapped a clean cloth around her wrists, the silence between us heavier than the desert heat. Only after some time did she speak. "My name is Lena." Her voice was rough but steady. "I'm Jesse," I said. She didn't respond to that, just stayed into the fire like it might carry answers. Later that night, I stepped outside to think. The stars were out, vast and unblinking. In their light, this whole place felt like a prayer waiting for someone to whisper it. Footsteps behind me. Lena. She stood in the doorway, wrapped in my blanket, her hair wild and her shoulders square. "You're an outlaw," she said. Not a question. I was. She looked me over, gaze cutting to the marrow. "Men like you don't change. I don't pretend to, but I help when I can." She tilted her head, like she was weighing that against something far heavier. "They kept me tied for 3 days," she said finally. "Men from the mines. Said I was a token. Something to trade. I killed one with a rock. I ran." I looked at her, not with pity, but something deeper. Reverence, maybe. "You survived." "No," she said. "I endured." The barn held its breath. "I should go," she added. "You won't get far tonight, and they might still be looking, Dut. I'm not afraid." "I am." She turned at that. Slowly, her eyes narrowed. "Afraid for me?" I met her gaze. "Afraid for both of us." A crack echoed from the distance. Not thunder. Hoofbeats. I ducked into the barn, grabbed the rifle from behind a beam. Lena had already dropped to the floor, calm as a woman used to being hunted. Her hand slid a small knife from her boot, its blade no bigger than a tooth, but gripped like salvation. We didn't speak, just moved, back to back as the hoofbeats drew closer. 2 riders, then 3. Lanterns swaying in the dark. Men calling to each other in slurred voices, just far enough not to make out the words. Lena's hand tightened on her knife. I aimed low, not to kill, just to scare. A shout rang out, then a shot. Dirt sprayed near the barn door. I fired back, into the air. The horses screamed. The men cursed, retreating into night. Not cowards, but not willing to fight ghosts either. Silence returned, thick and taut. Lena exhaled beside me. Her shoulder brushed mine. For a moment, she didn't move. "Why did you shoot high?" she asked. "Because I don't want to be that man again." She studied me long, the fire reflecting in her eyes. "Then don't be." We sat in the barn together until dawn, listening for hoofbeats, but only hearing wind. At first light, the canyon wind stirred the ashes of the fire, and Lena was already standing, bare feet in the dust, face tilted toward the sun. Her silhouette looked carved from the stone itself, wounded, yes, but unbent. I watched her through the veil of mourning, feeling something like reverence claw up through my ribs. She hadn't slept. I knew that look. Someone who'd spent the night measuring all their exits. "You should eat," I said, holding out a crust of dry bread and some wild berries I'd gathered before dawn. She didn't move to take it. "I don't owe you kindness," she said. "No," I replied, voice low. "But I figure you owe yourself a little piece." She took the food, not as a favor but a necessity. Her hands were sure, even when they trembled. As she ate, she kept one eye on the horizon, one hand near the knife she kept in the fold of her skirt. A hawk circled high above us, silent, watching. The kind of stillness in the world that comes before something breaks. I mended the saddle straps while she watched. The leather was cracked, brittle from heat. "A lot like me. Why do they want you?" I asked after a long silence. "They don't want me, she said, chewing slowly. "They want what they think I stand for. Fear. A story they can twist." "What's your story?" Her eyes flicked to mine, dark and unwavering. "I was taken near Red Blossom Creek. Sold to a miner. Escaped on foot. 3 days without water. When I reached your town, I thought the land might swallow me whole." I said nothing. Sometimes silence is more decent than sympathy. She stepped forward, close enough I could smell the smoke in her hair. "You used to ride with them. With the ones who raid Apache camps and drag girls like me into the dirt." My breath caught, not from surprise, but because the truth, spoken aloud, has weight. "I did," I said. "Years ago. Before I knew what mattered. Before I knew better." Her mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, not yet forgiveness. "Then I wonder what kind of man you are now." "I do too." That was when she knelt beside me and touched the rifle. Not with fear, but with curiosity. Her fingers traced the worn wood like it might give her an answer I couldn't speak. The days passed, slow and taut. We did not talk much. She climbed the canyon paths barefoot, learning the terrain. I taught her how to reload a revolver, and she taught me how to listen to the wind. We cooked what we could catch, jackrabbit, once, and cactus fruit. I noticed how she never turned her back to me, never let her knife stray far. But little by little, her silence shifted. One morning, she sang. It was soft, almost a hum, but the melody wrapped around the canyon walls like smoke, like morning. It made something in my chest ache. I didn't speak, didn't move, afraid I'd break the spell. Later that day, I found her watching me from the shadows. "You carry ghosts," she said, "only the loud ones." That night, she left a polished river stone near my bedroll. Smooth and dark, etched with a spiral. A symbol, maybe, or a warning. I didn't ask. I just kept it. By the fifth night, I caught her studying my hands as I cleaned my pistol. "You don't look like a killer," she said. "Looks lie. So do men." "I ain't lying. Not yet." Her eyes softened, just barely. I realized then that trust wasn't given. It was built, one quiet hour at a time. But the outside world wasn't sleeping. Just past midnight, a voice echoed off the rocks. "Coulter, we know you're up there. Ain't got business with the squaw. Just need what's ours." I stiffened. Lena didn't. She moved with deliberate calm, extinguishing the fire with a bootful of sand. Her blade was already in hand. The same men, or new ones, it didn't matter. They had come for her. There were 3 of them, 2 on horseback, 1 on foot, holding a lantern like it was a badge of God-given right. They were close. Too close. I motioned to Lena, and she nodded, silent understanding now between us, like breath. I crouched behind a ridge. Let them come. Let them see only shadows. "Come on out, Jesse," the leader called, voice slurring with whiskey. "Ain't no need to die for a stray." I stepped forward just enough for the firelight to catch my face. "You want me?" I said. "Drop the gun and we talk." One of them laughed, a dry crackle of sound. "You ain't in no place to bargain, outlaw. We just want the girl." Lena appeared then, ghost-like behind me, eyes cold and wild. She didn't speak, but the knife glinted in her hand like a promise. The sight of her gave them pause. A ripple of confusion passed between the men. They hadn't expected her to stand her ground. "She's under my protection," I said. "You know my name. You know what I've done. Think real hard before you try to take her." The man on foot took a step forward. I raised the rifle. "Easy," he muttered, raising his hands. But I could see the twitch in his fingers, the tilt of his shoulders. He was ready to shoot. So I did it first. The bullet struck the lantern. It burst into fire and smoke, throwing sparks across the dry brush. Horses panicked, rearing back. The men swore, one falling hard off his mount. I grabbed Lena's hand and we ran, not away, but up, higher into the rocks where the horses couldn't follow. They didn't chase. They wouldn't risk the dark or the cliffs. Not for her. Not for a girl they saw as less than a name. We watched from the ridge as they retreated, the embers of their fury flickering in the wind. Lena turned to me, breath hard, shoulders heaving. "You didn't have to do that." "I know," I said. She stared at me a long time. Then, for the first time, she smiled, small, sad, real. "You're not what I thought," she whispered. "Neither are you." We sat side by side beneath the stars, hearts pounding in sync with the dying wind. And though neither of us said it, we knew something had shifted. Not love, not yet, but something sacred, something owned. The desert was changing. You could feel it, not in the sand or sky, but in the way the silence no longer stung. The wind had softened, carrying the scent of mesquite and memory. Lena walked ahead of me, her stride steady, purposeful. She hadn't asked me to follow, and I hadn't asked her if I could. Some paths ain't made of permission, just choice. We left the canyon at first light, our shadows long and close together. Her people were 3 days east, past dry creek beds and hills scorched red from the sun. We had no horse, no map, only the rhythm of our feet and the brittle trust between us. "You don't owe me anything," she said on the second morning, eyes never leaving the horizon. "I know, but you're still coming. I'm tired of running from the wrong things." She nodded once. That was enough. We traveled in silence, except for the soft scuff of boots over stone and the occasional call of a hawk circling far above. I caught her watching me sometimes, not with suspicion, but something gentler, as if trying to decide what kind of shape I made in her story. I had no answer, only the quiet ache of wanting to be something better than what I'd been. By the third night, we reached a dry arroyo flanked by stone spires that looked like teeth. Lena stopped, her body tense. "They'll be waiting," she said. "Your people." "No, the ones who want to keep me from them." We saw the firelight first, low, flickering behind a rock ridge. Figures moving. 3, maybe 4. No camps set up. No horses tethered. Men who traveled light and hunted in shadows. "They'll come once we sleep," she murmured. "Like they always do." I checked my rifle. 1 shot left. My knife was dull, handle cracked. I glanced at her, still, grounded, blade in hand like it had never left her palm. I didn't need to ask if she was ready. She always had been. "We can wait," I said. "Let them make the first move." "No," she whispered. "We move first. We end it." So we did. We crept through the stones, the earth still warm beneath our feet. I took the left, she the right. Our eyes meeting once, no words. Just breath and memory. The first man never saw her. Her blade flashed like lightning, clean and quiet. He hit the date before his body understood it was done. I found the second leaning on a rock, chewing jerky and humming to himself. I didn't kill him, just cracked the butt of my rifle into his skull and let him fall. Not mercy, just choice. The third saw us coming. He shouted, panic, not command, and raised his pistol. I tackled him. We hit the date hard, rolling through cactus and dust. He fought like a man who thought fear made him strong. I fought like a man with nothing left to lose. His shot went wide. Mine didn't. When it was over, the fire still burned. Lena stood above one body, her shoulders rising and falling. Blood stained the hem of her skirt, but her face was calm. She knelt, whispered a few words in Apache, then rose and walked to me. "Is that all of them?" I asked. "For now." We didn't speak again that night. We sat beside the fire and let it warm our hands. She leaned into me, not much, just enough to say she wasn't alone. I didn't move. I didn't breathe too hard. I just let her be there, like a storm settling. At dawn, we climbed the last ridge. Below us, in the low valley, tents stood in a wide half-circle, smoke rising from cook fires, children's laughter carried by the wind. Her people. Home. She didn't move. Just stared. "You don't have to go down," I said. "I do," she answered. "But you don't." "I know." She turned to me then, really looked. Her eyes were darker in the light, deep as the land. She touched the place just above my heart. Not soft, but certain. "What you did back there," she said, "you didn't do it to be forgiven." "No." "Then let that be enough." I couldn't speak. My throat felt filled with dust and prayer. She started down the hill. I watched until she vanished into the circle of her people. They greeted her not with cheers, but with silence and open arms. A sacred kind of homecoming. I stood there, part ghost, part man, part something I didn't have a name for. I turned to go, but before I reached the rise, a voice called my name. Clear, steady, hers. I looked back. She stood halfway between me and the village, her hand raised. "You came this far," she said. "You can walk the rest." I didn't hesitate. They met me at the edge, elders in long robes, faces carved by sun and time. They didn't smile, but they didn't turn me away. Lena took my hand, placed it palm up before them. She said something in her tongue, words I didn't know, but felt like balm on burned skin. One of the elders stepped forward, pressed a stone into my hand, like the one she'd left me once in the canyon. He nodded. "You are not here to be redeemed," he said. "You are here because you chose to stay when running would have been easier." Lena stood beside me, head high, eyes soft. They called it a binding, not a wedding, not a claim, just a recognition. Two souls who had chosen to carry each other's shadows. Later, by the fire, she said, "You were once a legend for all the wrong reasons. And now, you belong to something true." That night, as the drums beat low and stars blinked open across the sky, I laid back in the dust, the warmth of her beside me, the hum of a new name on my breath. If you ever find yourself drowning in shame, pulled under by what you've done or what the world says you are, remember this. A man is not made by his past, but by the hands he holds when the fire's burning low. And sometimes, the road home starts with turning toward the very thing you were taught to fear. That's where the sacred lives.